Hi, this is Bob Roberts, and I'm the dead man talking. I have stage 4 cancer in my liver, and possibly only a few months to live. So I've invited 4 of my best friends from college days to talk about cancer, suffering, death, hope, and God. I can't wait for you to meet Will Gawkin, Jason Jans, Ellis Murphy, and Josh Darnell. My desire is to tackle big questions and challenges that my probable near-term demise raises, and to always season the sobering with humanity and humor. Don't expect nice and tidy solutions with a bow on top. It's going to get messy.
Welcome to episode 22 of the Dead Man Talking podcast. We are gathered here tonight to really talk about friendship and what that actually means and why we actually think it's necessary, especially for men. And this was Bob's idea. So, Bob, why don't you tee us off and kind of like tell us why you wanted to talk about this here tonight?
Well, actually, I'm going to just pass the buck over to my beloved brother Ellis, because this is his baby. But it just resonated with me. One question that he had in particular just went right to my jugular, and I thought, this is so much of what we've been living, and I felt like we could speak into it with some real experiential intelligence. So, Ellis, you go for it.
Well, I think you just said what I would say, Bob. Yeah, you know, the bulk of the feedback, a lot of the feedback we've gotten has been along the lines of male friendship or friendship in general. People crave it. They love to see what we have. They wish they had it. And even at the events we did in Pennsylvania, that was a question that came up in at least one of the churches that we visited. And obviously that speaks to the fact that people, and men especially, and maybe even more especially a lot of men in ministry, really lack in this area of deep abiding friendship. And so the idea of why do men need more than one really deep relationship to urge them onward in the difficult times and to encourage them more in their own walk with Christ and their own sanctification is one I thought it'd be great for us to hit on.
I'd like to just chime in here for a second. One of the reasons why I've needed such good friends is because I have lots of blind spots. And a good friendship will cast light on one of those blind spots. I remember when I went through a difficult divorce, about a year and a half, 2 years after the divorce, I was really becoming not only embittered because I just didn't see it coming, and I was trying to take care of 2 little boys at the same time. As a man, I was being tempted with immorality. And I remember March Madness was coming up. I wanted to go to see some basketball, but I decided I was going to go watch the tournament in Vegas instead of anywhere around where I was living. I was living in Tennessee at the time. And Keith Charlton, one of my best friends, called me on it. He and I were talking. I said, dude, I'm going to go out to Vegas and catch this and that. And he said, dude, why aren't you going to the ones around here? Why are you going to the one in Vegas? And I said, well, I mean, I just kind of, he's like, well, what? And I was like, dude, I just, you know, I really want to sin. Mm-hmm. And he's like, dude, that's what I thought. I'm just telling you, dude, I love you and I'm just going to call it out. It's bullcrap that you'd want to go all the way to Vegas. I already had the plane ticket. And I canceled the plane ticket because he was right. He called me on it. But here's the deal. I really did want to go watch basketball, but in the back of my mind, I was but he called me on it. And I just think men, well, I can't speak for all the men. I got blind spots, and you guys have called me on it for 30 years, and it helps. It's love. It ain't always fun. You know, when we say iron sharpens iron, it's going to be sparks. But Anyway, it's just an example. We need each other. Period.
So I think that goes to the heart of the episode, and that is, if we were to say, "Hey, should guys have friends?" That's like a no-brainer question. But part of the reason we want to talk about this is it's not a luxury; it's a necessity for survival, for the long term in life, to be a healthy man at the end of our days. And so, Bob, you've talked about how the coming face to face with your mortality seems to accelerate this whole idea. And the fact that, I mean, one of the reasons, Ellis, you wanted to have the podcast was talk about you don't just need a best friend, you really need 4 to 6 dudes, and obviously not limited to the male gender, but men seem to be less socially connected than women are. I read a stat in preparation for tonight that in 1990, over 50% of men had 4 to 6 friends. And today, it's less than half of that have 4 to 6 friends. And so male friendship is on the retreat. And we're here to say, like, it is essential to survival. And I think, Josh, you just kind of like double clicked on it by saying, yeah, it saved me from some life altering bad decisions. But can we talk about that a little bit about this is not a nicety, it's a necessity?
Yeah, I mean, for me, for my money, this is just kind of an extension of really the story of my life. I've made comment many times on this podcast about how I am really a compilation of you guys. Like, if you distilled, some of the best parts of each of you, I feel like I got a lot of that. And I know I've needed you, not to the extent that I know I need you now, but I know I've needed you throughout my 30 years of friendship with you guys. I've seen how good it's been for me. And then faced with my near-term demise, I knew I would need you more. So I wanted to leverage that. And it almost sounds kind of business-like and unfeeling, but no, it's filled with emotion. It's filled with mind, will, and emotion. Everything that comprises me realizes that I don't make it all the way. I don't get my prayer answered, which is, Lord, let me die well. I don't get that answered without my friends. You guys are an integral part of that answer to that prayer. So, that's the advantage I have. I have a leg up on you guys in many ways because I'm living with a ticking clock that I remember just about every hour, if not every moment. So,
Bob, you've had a leg up on us your whole life because you're 6'23". So. But Bob, why 4 to 6 and not just one bestie? Even though we all could lobby for the fact that we think we're your bestie.
We all were his bestie, but Ellis is his bestie now.
Yeah, pretty much. Ellis and I are going to hang this weekend, which is going to be awesome. But I think there is something really wonderful about the dynamics of that 4 to 6 number, and it's manageable. Like I feel like I can give quality back to each one of you guys. And I know each one of you guys intimately and well, and that I can maintain the depth of relationship with that 4 to 6 number.
Now, Bob, are you just playing us? Like you tell Josh one thing, you tell me one thing, and then you tell Jay one thing. I mean, like
he does do that because he tells me that.
Right.
I think it's.
I think there's.
Well, I mean, I think this is like you're getting at a jugular here, right? Like of human unsanctified portions of us, right? Like we ain't perfect yet, but like I know I would happily die for each one of you. I am also, in a sense, I know I don't get to be, dying in a war like in that Josh has seen so much over there in Ukraine, or I've seen in World War II videos, but there is something that I have kind of absorbed, which is I feel like I have the privilege to die for you guys in the sense of maybe you got your colonoscopies when you never would have, and you
One
might
of your
get
greatest contributions to our life.
you maybe get 10, 15, 20 more years out of that. I'm really hopeful that I make it all the way and die well as kind of a visible, tangible. I knew that guy. If he could do it, that well, I can do it at least that well, if not better. And so I happily run that race to pave the way for my best bros.
Yeah.
So I think the thing we're trying to juxtapose here is there is the bestie model, like I have one friend, and then you have, I have 25 friends. Somebody said to me one time, like, you can play cards with the same guys every Friday night and never know anything about their lives, right? And we said, hey, getting a group of 4 to 6 people together, there's some magic there because it doesn't all rest upon one relationship, but there's this like almost like a Fellowship of the Ring type group of people that kind of go on a journey together that seems to have a richness to it. And I think one of the things we're trying to do is promote that and saying, hey, male loneliness is a real deal. What would it take to like pull a bonfire together and get some guys and say, what if we could walk on a road together and develop this relationship? Tomorrow starts now. Like we can start doing it.
I'd like to say something about our friendships. When I am talking to any of you, and if I ask any of you here, are you good? Are you good? I feel really special about the fact that I know I'm going to get a real answer. It's extraordinarily valuable to me. I know all you guys you're going to tell me straight up what's really going on. And then that liberates me to be able to say, hey man, I'm hurting here, or this is happening here. I think men need confidence. I really do. I think we need confidence. And I think confidence comes from being able to confide in someone that you love, and they're going to tell you whether or not, hey man, am I okay? Was this a stupid thing to think? I know with you guys, and I can almost, there's like, I would go to Will for this situation, or I would go to Bob for this one, or I would go to, it's like our friendship is a huge diamond, and there's safety in a multitude of different counselors, and so I think a lot of men don't have confidence because they don't have this.
Yeah. So the great theologian Brene Brown, by the way, I do read Brene Brown. She said vulnerability breeds connection. Well, there is a certain bro culture that I would say, especially maybe in the West, where we are not encouraged to be vulnerable. And so I wonder if you could go around and just, because this is what conspires against this, right? Is you can get 4 to 6 guys and go hunting or do whatever, but never get real with each other. And so I wonder if we just talk about some of the enemies of this. Like,
Right.
What are the messages or scripts you were given,
Yeah.
either in your childhood or in your religious upbringing, that tended to discourage the vulnerability that breeds the connection for male friendship? Let's talk about the enemies against it. What messages were you given?
We were raised in Gen X culture, right? We were raised in Rambo, Red Dawn, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, I'm trying to imagine myself as like a 15 or 16-year-old version of me in the 80s, early 90s, listening to us talk about the value of friendships and the vulnerability and the intimacy that we all kind of exude and demonstrate. And that does not jive well with the 80s Gen X psyche.
Yeah, I think the comment "man up" big boys don't cry. Like there
Toughen
was
up,
this,
Buttercup. Yep.
yeah, like we don't have time for that emotion stuff, right? Those conspired
Right.
against vulnerability.
Before we go too far, I do want to differentiate between Rambo, Terminator, and Red Dawn. Like Red Dawn had community. Red
Yes,
Dawn had
Will.
community. They were
Yes.
Wolverines.
Go deeper, Will.
I'm telling you,
I
like
just hit a chord with you.
Rambo and Terminator are solo agents. The Wolverines, they died for each other, Bob.
Together,
Culture
brother.
80s, right?
Yes, that's awesome.
What? Okay.
Thank
okay,
you, Will.
Will, please compare and contrast a little bit deeper because we just woke you up. So go for it. What did you see in Red Dawn?
Oh, Red
that
Dawn
was
is.
no. That was attractive to you
Oh yeah.
as a man as it relates to friendship.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's the whole concept of they're daydreaming in school, and those paratroopers come in, start machine gunning people, and even this scene right here, like they're jumping the back of, they're running out of the school, and the older brother who's already graduated, who was the superstar quarterback, is grabbing his little brother and his buddies and chucking them in the back of their truck.
Right.
And
Awesome.
they're driving out, getting shot at together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that right there. That did.
I
wake me
watched
up.
it last week, Will. I watched it last week.
It better
It's
not been the new
awesome.
one. The new one does not
Yeah.
do it justice. All
You're
right.
not allowed to watch that.
Hey, my narrative.
But in that Will, though, real quick before you come to that, what drew you to say I want that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was trying to think of as the geopolitics or the Idaho in me, but it was better than just a solo guy going into the woods. It's the camaraderie. I think it's the brotherhood. I think we are hardwired for
Yes.
brotherhood. That
Yes.
I think we were made that way.
We're hardwired. Totally agree.
So
I totally agree. I told my oldest son, Elijah, 278th Cav, United States Army, I told him today that one of the safest times that I've ever felt was when I was with my unit in Ukraine, in a war zone, fighting, but I knew that every one of those men would die before I would die alone. And they knew that for me too, after months of experience. We didn't want to be in that position, but we knew it. And that's the way I feel like with you guys. Spiritually, I know that you guys would do whatever and go the distance to try to encourage me, love me, get my head out of my tail end, or whatever it would take. I mean, and there's no price tag for that. There's just so, and let me just answer my little thing on Jason's question as far as an enemy. An enemy is I'm going to project what I want my friends to think about me rather than this is really what's going on. Most conversations with guys, they're trying to project whatever they're trying to whatever. But all it takes is real love. Real love will get in there. It makes all the difference in the world. I mean,
Murph, any messages you received that conspired against male intimacy?
Oh yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that you guys have already mentioned, but coming up in that time where we were raised by people who were raised by the people who went through the Depression and World War II and all that. My dad wasn't very present in my life, but he was a Vietnam guy with Purple Hearts, everything else that never talked about Vietnam. It was a pull yourself up by your bootstraps thing, and you just pressed on. You didn't cry. You were a man. Just be a man. Just be a man. Just be a man. There's this idea that I grew up with, and you guys did too, to various levels, but you just got to gut it out. Just gut it out. Yeah. This is the most horrible thing. Bottle it up and gut it out. Get through it. There is safety there is camaraderie, there is encouragement, um, charging up that hill or down that hill with, rather than going in with guns tucked under both arms, just blazing and hoping it all works out. Even Bob in his really dark valley right now, this is his valley. I mean, this is his march towards eternity. But we get to provide some encouragement, moments of respite. We get to hold his arms up at times, and he doesn't have to walk all this alone. And I think the biggest enemy that's out there for men when it comes to catching hold of that kind of friendship is there is risk involved, and we don't like to get vulnerable. The phrase that we've kind of used, it's a little biblical. The phrase we kind of use is the naked and unashamed thing, where we really present our ugly to the other guys.
What are we afraid of?
Well, there's a few things that I carry, and maybe we all do to certain degrees. Afraid of being rejected, of being laughed at, of being preached at rather than loved for the stupid junk that I do, of just being absolutely abandoned. And so when you meet people who are showing the kind of love to you that you feel comfortable enough to say, this is what I am, this is where I struggle, this is where I'm hurting, and to be met with love, and you guys have done that for me, to be met with love in those places, not to say, well, this really dumb thing you've done is okay, Ellis, but to say, dude, we love you, we're going to help you through this.
I do think it is the abandonment. And I think that's garden. That's all the way to the garden of rejection outside of a relationship with the Creator. I mean, it's like hardwired. I think that's why 1 John 4 is so powerful to me, because when that love enters in, it casts out the fear, because fear has to do with torment, and it's really a separation torment. And so I think for me, growing up, I just didn't have close and safe male relationships, but what was so spectacular for me was Northland. And there were some older men that discipled me. There were friends, and it was kind of fairyland, sorry, maybe it was dreamland, I should say, of how it just, for a season, it was the exact opposite of the narrative that I had growing up with. And then it probably wasn't until the last decade that there was trauma back in those male relationships. But I think now, God had started to work tools in there to be able to navigate that. But I could see some of the things that we go through, why people run from relationships.
Well, I think everybody's been, and I use the word intimacy, like emotional intimacy, everyone's been vulnerable and intimate with a person who's eventually rejected them.
Yep.
And I think that causes such a reaction to not want to get close to anybody again. And, we can say all we want. It's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. But in some sense, it's like, well, you get pretty nervous being around people, and especially I think, most of us have been involved pretty much in ministry life, whether for formal or informal type contexts. But our ministry positions mandated us to get into intimate spaces with people and into intimate moments in their lives. And then, they could be actually fairly good friends and maybe leave your church and go somewhere else without explanation. And it has this subtle feeling of betrayal or hurt. And what is that? And, I think I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to have the conversation, but wow, to think that the relationship didn't have enough timber in it to be able to actually sit down and just have a face-to-face and say, yeah, God might be leading people to different parts of the vineyard, but this doesn't mean that relationally we have to like treat each other like this. So I think there can become a point where you just develop a callous, which I think actually turns into a cynicism and bitterness,
Without a doubt.
right? Versus like
Yes.
trying to keep a heart of flesh and being open. But you also then start realizing like the older you get, you actually start shrinking your circle of friendships and going deeper versus going wider because you really value trust,
Yeah.
you know?
So I grew up with hyper boundaries because it's safe. Like I got to keep myself safe. And then Northland was beautiful, but it was like almost no boundaries. And I think actually the best of friends are like free borders. I don't know how to explain it, but there are boundaries, but it's like the doors are wide. And I feel like there's been seasons of hurt with too many boundaries, seasons of hurt of just this transparency that is unchecked, but then really now an openness, a security with big wide gates that lets friendships flourish in a better way than either two of those previous models.
I'd like to share some. That's great, Will. I'd like to share some pain here. These are just things that have gone through my mind the last couple of years. Number one, I've really tried to wrestle with this question: what does a biblical man really look like? And then really wrestle with some of those ideas. Does a man cry? How much does a man communicate? Because I remember growing up where it was almost like you were a wimp if you talked to a guy for more than 2 minutes on the phone. Like if you talk too long on the phone, it's like, dude, okay, yeah, whatever, see ya. And it was almost like, only girls have lengthy conversations. But so here are the 3 M's that I've wrestled with for the last several years. Number one, what does a man really look like? Number two, am I going to be misunderstood? And is it worth the effort of trying? Because a lot of times men are misunderstood. Because if they're too emotional, they really share what's on their heart. You're like, dude, that guy's messed up. He needs to go to a counselor or something. I mean, he actually shared what he was thinking. But here's the third one. Do I measure up? Do I measure up to my wife? Do I measure up to my friends? Do I really measure up? And if you go through a divorce, or if your mate dies, or if you lose a job in some weird way, and then it really docks you. You're like, you really start wrestling with those questions. But during those times of great difficulty where you're questioning, if you have a group of 4 to 6 friends, and you can really go to them and say, hey man, I'm really wrestling with this. Things are starting to, I look at the mirror of my life and it's starting to refract. It's really, who am I? And they tell me, hey, like I told my second son the other day, I said, son, no matter what happens, if you're a good soldier or a bad one, or I don't care what happens, I love you no matter what. No matter what. No matter what.
Yeah.
And I feel that with this group. And you need to find, if you're looking for good friends, that's who you need to look for. Men that know what God says about what a real man is. I have a soldier, an unsaved soldier, that periodically makes fun of me for crying. He wasn't an SS, he was just a regular infantry in Ukraine, but every once in a while we talk, he's like, oh yeah, darn, are you crying again? I said, yeah, I am. And it irritated him. It really did. And one time I told him, I said, you know what? Jesus, in Matthew 11, he says he cried a lot. And we're in a war zone. You don't cry. And the reason why you don't cry is because you don't care and you don't know how to deal with your emotions. Because your dad treated you like crap and he beat the crap out of you. You already told me that. And he was like, wow. Now we're good friends now.
A little documentary I saw yesterday with Mike Rowe interviewing one of the actors from Band of Brothers, that great World War II documentary. And he was interviewing the guy that played Buck Weathers. and Mike Rowe just brought up this role, and immediately there was emotion on the actor's face, and he was having trouble even discussing Buck Weathers because of the lived experience that he shared with so many of the other actors. It was very real to them. And Mike said, have you ever talked about it to your kids? And he says, Mike, you got to understand, the moment I start talking about Band of Brothers or even thinking about Buck Weathers, he says, I'm an absolute pile of jello. I just start weeping. And he says, but let me tell you what did happen. My son came and asked me point blank about it, and we turned on one of the episodes that was very meaningful to me, he said, and we just sat there about 10 minutes in and just started crying together. And he said that's all we did. There was no words, there was no discussion, but that was about the extent of how he could connect with his son on that level. And I thought, number one, that was beautiful. That was a gift of grace for him to be able to do that with his kid. But I also thought, man, where have we become crippled along the way to not be able to, what's the wall? What's the shield that prevents us from going and really connecting and being able to articulate our feelings?
Pain. Our pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, our pain. I couldn't even finish that series. When it showed that scene about the soldiers' memories are gone and you can't, I quit. I stopped. I had never seen it till I got back from Europe, and then I couldn't even get through it. I was crying so much. So yeah, yep.
So I'd like to do is plunge into, I think at this stage of the conversation, we need an example. And we're kind of holding ourselves up as some form of an example, but I think we would say we're an imperfect example. But Matthew 26 talks about Jesus and male friendship. And, I want to just kind of like lay out my presuppositions here, but I actually believe that one of the reasons we have Jesus is he shows us how to live as a human. And I try to guard myself against what I call the divinity reflex, that the moment we say, well, yeah, but he was God. I do believe Jesus was God, but I don't think the temptation in the wilderness is fundamentally about his godness as much as it is about his humanity, right? He was.
Yes.
We already have the picture of God the Father all throughout the Old Testament. So he says, so the most human, one of the most human parts of Jesus' life is Gethsemane. In Matthew 26, it says, Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. And he took Peter and two sons of Zebedee. So, Bob, I'm going to mess with your formula. He wanted 3, not 4 to 6, but he was God. Or did I just make that mistake? But he took these 3 with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. So you have basically sadness and anxiety in the body of our Savior, okay? And he said to his friends, these are the 3 he pulled in deeper into the garden, my soul is overwhelmed. So, I mean, you just think of that statement, like what I'm encountering seems like it's taking over me. I am overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. I mean, if you think about the heart of vulnerability, he's actually moments away from going to the Father and saying, I don't want to go to the cross. You could interpret it that way, right? And he is saying to his 3 closest relationships, I want you to know where I'm at. Can you stay here and keep watch with me? And I just think that our Lord is showing us what human vulnerability looks like and emotional connectedness is with other men. And I can imagine if I was one of those other 3, I would be paying really close attention in that moment, because then it says he went a little farther and fell on his face to the ground and prayed. I bet you they heard him. Like I said, it went a little farther. I don't think he went out of earshot. And they heard him say, "My Father, if it's possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." So I just want to, can we just kind of like dive into that experience and think and unpack it a little bit, because it gives us a picture of what we all really desire, that in the moment of the valley of the shadow of death, which, Bob, you are in, you called us and said, can we get onto a podcast together, and can you guys be with me as I walk through this space? So I just want to open that up for conversation around all the things we're talking about, with Jesus as our North Star.
Yeah, that's good.
Amen.
It's really good. I've been thinking about this whole time is that nowhere in the New Testament does it say go find 2, 3, 4 friends. And I think it's because it's the presupposition. I just think it's the manner of which they did life. I think, and it's just assumed so that even Jesus, like at the end, when he's resurrected, he's like, I just was looking it up. It's Matthew 28:10. He says, go tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. I think that the relationship, the hardwiredness, was part of Middle Eastern culture. And it's like, it's the way you did life. It was the assumption that you are going to have brothers in your life.
And I think Christ was showing through the passage that Jason just mentioned. Christ was, in one sense, showing us we can have permission to be mad, sad, or glad, and that's not unmanly. I mean, I have struggled. For the last almost 5 years. I have struggled. I cannot tell you how much I've struggled. It's been a great burden. Bob senses it, and every once in a while talks to me. I have several other friends that have sensed it. One gentleman at my church literally paid for me a ticket to go down to Mexico for a week and begged me just to get off my phone and just stay down there in southern Mexico for a week and chill with another guy that he knew that loves the Lord. And I did that. But it all came from this. I am so mad that there is a great bit of sin that's happening and it's hurting people, that my body is just really mad because injustice. And so what do I do with that? I have to go to the Lord and cry it out and beg the Lord to help me. Just like in this situation in Matthew 26, Jesus was really sad that he's going to have to be separated from his Father. But his friends either couldn't handle it or whatever. They were not really good friends, honestly. But at least he said it's okay to do that. And I just want to close out with this thought. I had a soldier friend of mine recently. We fought together in the first couple of battles in Ukraine. And he told me on a telephone conversation, he said, hey, Mav, I haven't cried yet. And I said, really? He said, no. And I know you have. And man, I just pray with me, please, that I can. I know I need to. I'm so mad. I said, yeah, I know, man. I know. But anyway, I really appreciate the fact that Christ gives us these verses to say it's okay. Not everybody's John Wayne. Not everybody has to say nothing. Not everybody's Bruce Willis and Die Hard. You can communicate. It's okay.
Jesus expressed a vulnerable need. And it's hard for us to maybe theologically, because of our divinity reflex, to say, yeah, but he was God. But he says, My soul is overwhelmed. Stay here and keep watch with me. He was wanting companionship at a moment of vulnerable sadness.
Yeah, amen. I lean in fully to what you said about Jesus is the true human, right? I mean, and this is part of the irony of Scripture is that it took God Himself to show us what a true human is. And so I think He preached the Sermon on the Mount, and then He lived it. So if you want to ask that question, what does a man look like, Josh? I mean, I think that the easy answer is, well, it looks like Jesus looked. But if you want to start opening up the hood on that, I think it's look at all of the Sermon on the Mount and then look at how He lived it out, how He fleshed it out, and especially on the cross. And, getting gospel-y here, those three loser friends that could not stay awake with Jesus and provide Him some comfort, and just a few hours later, He died for them. Like he paid for their sins eternally so that He could show Himself to them again in a few days, give them the best Bible lesson they've ever had, the post-resurrected Jesus unfolding in Luke 24, how the whole Hebrew Bible was all about Him, that this was always the plan, that no, they had not lost, they had in fact won, beaten death by death. And so that's exciting, right? That's exciting that we can lean into that there's an absolute, like there's a shield wall around the fear of rejection, the fear of acceptance, the fear of, being tossed aside when you realize I'm not going to lose that. I don't lose the purchasing power of the blood of Jesus. I don't lose the resurrected Christ.
So, Bob, let's talk a little bit about, you kind of did the spoiler alert on the passage because He actually goes and prays to the Father, and then He says He returned to His disciples and He found them sleeping and said, "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" And so I just want to take this into our relationship. Bob, let's just say you're Jesus here. There is a sense in which I think people could look into this friendship ring and go, "Oh, wow, those guys are awesome, and they're all friends, and they're all buddies, and I wish I had that friendship." But the truth is, sometimes I actually feel like I've fallen asleep on the watch while you're going through the cancer trial. In other words, I feel sometimes like I don't know how to be a great friend in the middle of your pain, which is so extreme, and not just the physical, but the emotional side of it. And, we've gotten together a couple times face to face over the last 2 years, but it's been like 3 times. And so I want you to go around and tell us how you're disappointed with each of us in our friendship with you.
Yeah, that'll work.
How we haven't shown up with you.
That's really part and parcel of my DNA. You know how good I'll be at that.
But hey, this goes to the 3 to 6.
This is some cancer face with us.
Why don't you just go?
I do think that we do have 18% though. Like if you got 5 or 6 of us, then you get 8. Like together, you get a complete.
Yeah, Will, I don't think you know your math very well.
I mean, I can't even go there without first lavishing the blessing, because it's just.
Let's just stop. Let's stop with all the lavishing. Let's just say, can we actually talk about the fact that even this is imperfect?
Without a doubt.
Even this, you can't stake your whole life on this, because it will actually disappoint. Right?
Yes, for sure.
We've actually hurt each other. We've offended each other in the middle of this relationship. We've, asked for clarification. We get sensitive. We have our egos. This relationship is still pretty dynamic, and it's not perfect.
I totally agree. What are you going for?
Well, I just want to say, I want to actually eliminate the hagiography that can take place and go, oh wow, those guys are great friends, and I wish I had good friends like those guys. And it's like it's still dicey. Like we've actually gotten closer in the last 2 years than we've been because of all the time we spent with each other. But we've also ticked each other off, and we've also been, why are you doing this? And like,
But that's
moody, right?
But that's why we have multiple friends, because then I don't have to talk to that one, or you don't have to talk to that one. And yet there's still
silent treatment to somebody.
But there's a unified whole. Like we know that the group wants to love each other, and like if anyone started talking, let's say Ellis called me up and said something about Roberts, I would listen to Ellis, but I'd also try to help Ellis, keep on going with it. Like I would mutually defend and listen. And that's what a group gets to do. If it was just two of us, then it's always fight. But when you got 3 or 4, then you can triangulate in a positive way.
With the real deeper, authentic relationship, we're in it for the long game. And when you look at Jesus' relationship that you brought up, Jason, with Peter, James, and John, these 3 different from the group of 12, these 3 specifically, it wasn't just about those moments. And Jesus showed them things he didn't show the other disciples. And I just heard a sermon about this at a men's conference, but there's this, he revealed himself in a way to those guys. He didn't reveal it to any of the other disciples. He brought them up to the mountain for the transfiguration, where the miracle of God in the flesh ceased for a minute and they got to see the real Jesus. He invites them into the garden and they fell asleep. But I think there's a long game, because after he's resurrected, he goes back to them. He feeds them fish on the shore. And those 3 men rock the world, right?
Yeah, Bob, you need to buy us some steaks.
Yeah.
In Knoxville.
No, I think this is the door that Ellis is knocking on is, part of my commitment to this group is that I feel like I can contribute something, and that I'm actually called to contribute something. And there is the hope of your fruitfulness. There's a hope of your future fruitfulness for the kingdom. And, I don't want to throw non-believers under the bus and the friendships of non-believers under the bus. But I do not think it is possible to overstate what unites us here. What holds us, what keeps us, is a common faith, and a saving faith, a regeneration experience that has given us new life in Christ, placed the Holy Spirit of God in us, and we're missional in our entire worldview. Like, it's really all about the risen Lord Jesus Christ, and me knowing him, and my wife knowing him, and my kid knowing him, and my community knowing him, and my church knowing him. And so my motivation, or even incentive to investing into this relationship, is I really hope Ellis and Josh and Jason and Will do rock the world. And you already have been, but I hope you do it better. If I'm trying to specifically criticize about your friendship, to me, I can't do it. It's an impenetrable wall. You guys are the best friends ever. But I could criticize you as far as what you should be doing in the kingdom better. I have deep and abiding opinions about that. Will, I think you should write. It would actually unburden me if before I die you say, Bob, here's a book that I think God wants me to write. And you have the pedigree, you have the education, you have the ability. I think you have the burden to do it. I think you should write.
With crayons.
Get ChatGPT, bro.
No doubt.
So, cran GPT.
Could you not write with me one book, Will?
Ellis, I think Ellis, you just are, you're like drowning, and somebody hands you another grandchild. And I look at you, and I even heard comments about you this week, and I'm like, Ellis has just got so many ministry gifts, and he's got such a deep, abiding love for people. And I mean, I know you did that grief share a while back, and I just wonder if that's not something we talked about it on a podcast a while back. I just wonder if that's not something God would have you to rediscover and reopen. Maybe even as we go up and talk to La Flamme this weekend, that's not in your future. And I'm not trying to heap burdens. I'm just saying, like, life is really short. It's a vapor, and it's gone tomorrow. And you all have been blessed and gifted. And so, what is the race that you've got left? Josh, I've wept with you privately. There's buttons I wish I could hit in your world that fix different things and fix different relationships. And I think for me right now, I wish you could step more into living in the eternal invisible than the temporal physical, and that you could go all in with the idea that the physical, literal King Jesus is going to return. He's going to raise all the people that you know from the dead. He raises them up, and he's going to make everything right. And I think that that is a shield for your mind. I think that could rescue you from a pit that you often go into. And I pray that for you regularly. So, yeah. So these are, I don't even know if these are criticisms. I think they're just like, I love you guys. I think this is true.
You're not very good at criticizing.
Oh,
I wish he was more negative like the rest of us.
We were like bending over waiting for you to whoop us.
That's how Jason knows you love him.
Jay.
this is the one we're all here to hear.
Oh.
Jason.
Okay. Come on. This is gonna be good. I can't wait. If you falter, Bobby, I got your back.
Oh, you got it.
I'm flinching. I'm ready.
I think that, Jay, you sometimes program your life to an extent that you actually you miss the ooey gooey secret worship in place of checking off some boxes. And there's been times when I've encountered you having you been fresh off the secret ooey gooey secret worship with your Lord. And there's a difference, man. There's a huge and mighty difference. So, this is something that I look at you and I say, this is actually a weakness in my life. I wish I had some of the character that Jay had to check off the box every day, just the discipline, the rigors of reading, devotions, all that kind of thing. But then you also looked at me and you said, well, Bob, you're effusive with Jesus. And I've seen you that way too. And I feel like it's the Martha versus Mary thing. And maybe in this last whatever chapter you're in, I hope you have 25, 30 more years, but I would hope that you have, the Martha needle could start swinging more to Mary, because you're really a beautiful man when you've spent time with Jesus.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I will take that. I receive it. I think there's things that go against the grain of a human, and I've learned, like, let them go with their natural bent. And Bob has always been a cheerleader of humanity more than a critiquer of humanity. And it's one of the reasons he's so attractive as a friend. So, okay. So in closing, I think I want to speak to the dude out there who's listening to this, who's like, I might have one, or I might have one and a half. And I would love to pull a bonfire together, but I'm a little bit nervous. What would be our challenge on just real practically how to go about creating a circle of 4 to 6 friends? So to preface this in closing, I was listening to an NPR Colorado podcast this morning on my bike in our Crack the Barrel weight loss competition here.
We're doing good. We're doing good on
And
that.
they had a snippet about, they called it Dude Talks. And it's this new thing that's taken off called Dude Talks. And these guys get together at a restaurant and they talk. And it's newsworthy. And they said most of the guys start off talking about sports and things like that. And then they actually go deeper. And I'm like, I'm on my bike and I'm listening to this. I'm like, okay, what do they do to go deeper? This morning. And they said they go around the circle and they ask, what's your high and what's your low? And I was like, so I work in an office. We all have a 4-foot desk and I work with 4 other women. And I was telling them about this thing because, women kind of know that men struggle with doing this. And I said, there's a group of men who are actually getting together in Idaho Springs, Colorado, and these dude talks are now catching on around the country. And I said, their deep question was, what's your high and what's your low? And Amy behind me goes, high, low, buffalo. Like, in other words, we've been doing that for decades, boys. It just shows you maybe how far behind we are in actually creating intimate spaces whereby we can know and be known with each other. So let's just help the guy who wants it and desires it. And let's not let him off the hook to just quit listening to this podcast and say one of these days and say in the next 7 days, bro, you need to take action. And if he was to call a group of guys together, how would he go about doing it?
Yeah.
So let's just open that up. Help the guy.
I would say, now maybe this is some like Southern culture or whatever. I would say, hey, pick 2 guys that you would like to go on an adventure with. And every man is different. Your adventure may look different than somebody else's. But pick 2 guys you want to go on an adventure with. Take them to Waffle House and say, we're going to have 30 minutes of conversation without our cell phones. And we're just going to ask each other how we're doing in our life. That's it. Pick 2 guys in your life that you would want to go on some adventure with. Take them to Waffle House, 30 minutes without a cell phone, and just ask them the question, how are you doing in your life? What's going on? Just start off with what's going on and go from there.
So I just had I want to hit the guy that I think that's good. I think that is exactly like the guy that is ready for it. Just go for it. I've had 4 guys over the last maybe 9 months basically say, I don't have friends. Would you go out to lunch with me? And so I go to lunch with them, and yet only one of them actually either asked something on a personal level or remained like, okay, if I ask them something personal. So I want to speak into the guy that's like sitting here knowing that they need community and yet are like just going out. And I think it's a good thing you go to lunch. That's great. But I'm like, just go for it. Just be awkward and just say it. Just name it and say, I'm not good at this, but I need to talk to somebody real. I need to go for it.
I want to just piggyback on that and say, I think where Christian community has drawn up short with men is they encourage these accountability groups. And basically accountability groups have been set up on this premise of let's ask each other 5 questions we wouldn't want anybody to ask us in our life ever. Like, who wants to go to that group every single
I'm not
week?
going.
So it's like, it doesn't have to always be what were your deepest, darkest, evil thoughts this week. In that, like, and what you're saying, Will, I'm just piggybacking on saying we need to get into a space that is not just a sin detective conversation with each other. It's actually going into like, what are my struggles in life and where am I at? And not looking for a sermon, but looking for just a listening ear.
Or what about even just saying, how did you feel about that? No, I just mean like how did that make you feel? So I think, this is you quote Jen. We're trying to get her on here sometimes, but how does that make you sad, mad, glad? I've been doing that for the last 6 months off of, I've heard you do it once or something, and I've been doing that. It's just great. And it gives freedom to have a great conversation.
One of the most amazing things about asking people the emotional questions, are you mad, sad, glad, fear, or shame, is how many times people answer without an emotion.
Right.
They actually don't even have an emotional register of language to talk about it.
I'm okay.
Yeah, right. That's not an emotion.
I'm good.
I think you may have hit on one of the reasons why our not just our generation, but maybe our religious tradition struggles with deep and abiding male friendships, because when we were taught about having friendships, they were for the express purpose of accountability and confession. That's part of my relationship with all you guys, but it flows from something better and deeper. And it's certainly not a programmed part of it. I was with a dear friend named Evan recently, and Evan and I have only been really close for about a year. And this past week, we had a lunch together, and then Evan pulled out his Life Application Study Bible, an upper room devotional, and we just had devotions together. And it wasn't long, it wasn't deep, but the platform of that was a diving board into a pool of a much bigger discussion that got very personal, very, very open, transparent. So I'm just grateful for those kind of relationships, man. I need it.
Be vulnerable, you'll get vulnerable. Be vulnerable, you'll get vulnerable.
Let's give the guy 5 to 10 questions that will allow people to get to emotional, vulnerable, liminal space quickly, that you've learned in your relationships that you can ask, like Will, you were already talking about. What are some questions that can get us to reality and our hearts faster than how are you?
In the last month, what's been the worst part of your month? What's hurt you the most in the last month? What's going on? How have you been hurt? Talk to me.
Yeah, that's good.
Is anything right now causing you fear?
Yeah, what's been a win? I think dudes just so want to give their wins that like say, hey, tell me something cool that's happened in your life. What's something that, is a win that's kind of like you wish you could share with somebody, but you feel kind of awkward talking about yourself. I'm a total safe place for a win.
Yes. That's awesome. That's a great question.
How are you and your wife doing? I actually feel like that open-ended question, usually you just can sit there for about 5 minutes. Do you like your work right now? And I think saying do you like versus like how was your work? What did you do?
I ask a question sometimes that gets me to some pretty fun places pretty quick, and that is, if you woke up in the middle of the night and Jesus appeared to you in your bedroom and he spoke to you right now in your life, what do you think he would say to you? And you take the answer to that question and you ask 3 follow-up questions, you get to some pretty significant places in people's hearts.
That'd be a fun podcast.
Man, that's awesome.
If your life was a chapter book, what would the title of the book be, and what would its 4 chapters be titled?
That's great.
Get to people like eyes roll back, and they actually like talking about themselves, and they then describe their life in their own terms.
One of my kids did that to me, but they did it with a Spotify playlist. They said, Dad, if you did a Spotify playlist for about every 5 years of your life, what would be on the playlist? I talked for like an hour.
I want to piggyback on something Will said. I think music is a big deal. I've asked lots of guys, so what kind of music do you like to listen to? And then all I do is say, why? Does it reflect something that you like? I mean, does it fire you up? Talk to me. I literally had communication a lot with my soldiers in Ukraine, and music was a conversation that really got to a lot of other stuff. So I think music is a big deal.
What 2 or 3 events in the first 20 years of your life radically affected the rest of it?
When was the last time you remember being really happy? What was the circumstances?
Yeah.
Yeah, where are you disappointed with God right now? Where do you feel like God has not delivered for you what you thought he would?
I think anything in that realm that, like disappointment, like you just said, like, so if you're with a friend that maybe they are not a God follower, you could still ask that question.
Yeah, Richard Rohr says in the first 40 years of our life, our greatest struggles are with sin. And in the second half of life, our greatest struggles are with God.
Yeah.
When you start getting people opening up about their struggles with God, you get to some pretty cool places where you can do some work.
I don't get that. I fundamentally don't get that. I mean, that gives me hope. The Richard Rohr quote gives me hope. Okay, maybe I'm still in the first half of my life. Maybe I got a lot of life left to live. I don't get that. And I don't feel like it's plastic-coated Joel Osteen-ness. Like, my biggest disappointments are still with me and my sins, the things I return to as a dog returns to his vomit. And I feel like if Jesus came to my room tonight, I think he would say, "Wrap it up, redeemed one, and keep showing people how to die well." And so, like, I'm not disappointed with God at all.
Yeah, and Bob, I want to honor that and not push back on that at all, because that very well may be true. I just know I go to church with a lot of individuals who really thought God was going to bring them a spouse by this stage of their life, and they're subtly not disappointed with themselves. They're subtly disappointed with God when you dig just a little bit below the surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people, when they hit midlife, their life is not what they thought it was going to be, or they may have been part of a formulaic river of Christianity that said if you put this stuff in, you're going to get this stuff out, and they didn't get it, and so they're going through this struggle. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that there is a large group of people that struggle.
What Rohr said is normative for most folks. And it could be, Bob, that some people just their conversion story was so radical with their encounter that it's not, but like I know myself, my issues are with God.
Bob, I think your theology is so on, and you have such a deep belief in sovereignty and a deep belief in the goodness of God that your theology has actually helped keep you centered and not go into that ditch. But I don't think it's normative, to Will's point.
When you read the book of Job, do you see Job as disappointed, or do you just see Job as an honest lament?
I just finished Job this morning, actually.
Okay, amen.
and I feel like there's man, it's right up to a borderline. It's got to be into the push into the disappoint.
Okay.
I was just going to say the film, besides Red Dawn, that would probably center all of us because of our age is Carpe Diem's, Dead Poet Society. And I would agree, heretic or not, Henry David Thoreau said that most men live lives of quiet desperation. And I think some of the reasons why they live lives of quiet desperation is because they're so quiet. They don't want to communicate with other men. They don't want to ask when they're hurting, like, am I supposed to be hurting right now? They don't want to seek a mentor. They don't want to find encouragement with anybody else. According to Scripture, a person that wants to have friends, you got to be friendly, man. You got to get out there. You got to put yourself out there. And I think that's kind of what Bob said. One of the reasons why we can stick our chins out there is because I really do believe the Lord loves me no matter what. He's forgiven me.
That's right.
And so if you're a man looking for a friendship, I'm an old chaplain, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to have good friendships unless you have the one friendship that matters the most. And that's Christ. He's forgiven you. He loves you no matter what. I
just want to say this though, Josh, there's a lot of people who love Jesus who have no friends.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people that have friends that don't know Jesus.
I'm actually more with Jay because I wrestled finishing Band of Brothers. Like I've gone over, and those men were so close some of them for the rest of their lives. And there were some believers, but most of them weren't. Dick Winters, who's just an absolute stud. I cried when I finished reading his autobiography, and he wasn't a believer. But
if God causes it to rain on the just and the unjust,
yeah,
He allows friendships for the just and the unjust, right?
I think that there is something extra that Christians should have, and that's why it's a shame when Christians don't have friendships. So if you gave common grace friendships, and then with the security in Christ, I could have a super normative relationship, and I don't, I think shame on us.
Yeah, I think Bob and Josh, you're hitting on this idea that, because Bob, you talked about this earlier, like when you have a common story that you believe as a group, it allows you to go deeper because we all believe the same story, right?
And the Easy Company with Dick Winters, they had a common story. They got thrown together in basic training. They went into a crucible of unimaginable difficulties. They froze their butts off in the Argonne forest. I get that. Besides you guys right here, and my own natural brother, and a couple other guys from our church, the men that I spent almost 3 years with in Ukraine, I cannot tell you how close I am with them. They're just incredibly close. We communicate a lot, and in fact, one of those men got mad at me because I questioned. I said, "Hey, man, if I'm bothering you," he said, "What are you talking about, Mav? We can't bother each other. You know what we went through." He got mad at me for even questioning the lengths that he would go through in our relationship. I think our friendships can be more rich because Christ says, "I love you no matter. I've forgiven you. I love you, not only for now, but forever." And now an unbeliever may say, "Well, I've got friends like that." And I say, "No, you don't, because you're going to die and I'm going to die."
Yeah.
And so
that's beautiful. Yeah. I think in Christian friendship, you can spur one another on to love and good works. And there's a level of a shared language, a shared story, a shared belief set where we can actually help each other because we're all reading off the same script. Although we may have different interpretations, we actually believe we should make each other better. I have a mentor friend who's been pulling together a group of guys for over 30 years. And he said to me, "Jason, if I wouldn't call the group to meet, we would never meet."
Yep.
And I just want to say real practically to the guy out there, if you don't do it, they're not going to call you. So pick up the phone, text the guys, call the meeting, and just start it. Because otherwise it isn't going to happen, and you're going to be sitting here sucking your thumb 5 years from now wishing you had friends.
And be okay. Being okay calling 6 and 4 show up and hang with the 4.
right.
Yeah.
He that is friendly hath friends, man. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Well, I love this thought. I love the conversation on friendship, and I've mentioned this one before, but Pilgrim's Progress, Pilgrim could not have made it to the celestial kingdom without friends. and he needed faithful in the middle of Vanity Fair, and as he crossed the Jordan, he needed hopeful. And so, in a sense, it's funny. I don't know if I'm going heresy, but in the Bible, you got these types of Jesus, and in a sense, Bob, there's a sense of tonight as we're talking to you, we put you as the Jesus figure, but there's a sense of you in dying. You are doing a work of grace in me.
Praise God.
God is doing a work of ultimate grace through you in me.
I want to say that for those of you guys out there watching this podcast, you got all the way to the end. I just want to say it's important for a man to know what he's willing to die for. Ask yourself the question, what are you truly willing to die for? Seriously. And if you don't have good friends on that list, get them on the list. I mean, because it matters. It matters that much. And I've personally been in those situations where I had to make real decisions on what I'm going to live and die for. And I would die for these men. You need to have good friends. It matters that much.
Friendship can be risky, and you have to determine that the risk is worth it. We've all five of us on here have been burned bad at one time or another by friendship. Hurtful stuff that we still carry, right? But all of us have been immensely enriched and blessed by friendship as well. And there's risk involved. There's risk of reputation and risk of exposure, I guess. But that for me is worth it because you gather the right kind of friends around yourself, and they're pushing you forward. They're pushing you onward. They are helping you become a better man and a better Christian.
I would say the two ingredients that must be in the cake are quality time and quantity time. Quality time means you cannot just sit there and shoot the bull. You actually have to have a real conversation that's curated, that gets to the heart level. And then quantity time, you're not going to do this twice a year. So you're going to have to put up a rhythm and invest in it for it to yield the fruit that you want. So without that, don't even bother trying. But if you can do that, you'll see fruit.
Man, I'm going to whiff here majorly by changing gears, and I apologize in advance, but I'm going to try to make it mesh here because I just think it's so good. This weekend I was at a church. I got a chance to present some of my cancer journey along with the Word of God, and one of the worship leaders named Brandon, he was very touched, and he wanted me to know this quote from Pilgrim's Progress Part 2, which is about Christiana, right? Isn't that right, Will? His wife and kids. And there's a different set of characters in there. And so this worship leader sent the quote to Brian Peterson, who's the pastor at the church. And, Brian ministered to me, Mark Eggerdahl ministered to me. They've been longtime friends as well. And this quote that I was given on Sunday night has just been so very helpful. And I want you guys to know this. This is what, by God's grace, this is my mission. I think this is my mission. And I want to do this for you. I love you. And so this quote has helped me further own the lap I'm running. Then said Mr. Standfast, "This river has been a terror to many. Yea, the thoughts of it have often frightened me. But now methinks I stand easy. My foot is fixed upon that, upon which the feet of the priests that bear the Ark of the Covenant stood while Israel went over this Jordan. The waters indeed are to the palate bitter, and to the stomach cold. Yet the thoughts of what I am going to, and of the conduct that waits for me on the other side, doth lie as a glowing coal at my heart. I see myself now at the end of my journey. My toilsome days are ended. I am going now to see that head that was crowned with thorns, and that face that was spit upon for me. I have formerly lived by hearsay and faith, but now I go where I shall live by sight, and shall be with him in whose company I delight myself. Now while he was thus in discourse, his countenance changed, his strong man bowed under him, and after he had said, Take me, for I come unto thee, he ceased to be seen of them. And brothers, I'm in the river, and the ground is certain. The floor is stable. Yep. You can safely follow. You can safely follow.
Thank you for joining us today on the Dead Man Talking podcast. We hope this conversation impacted you. And if you know somebody else who could use it and be blessed by it, feel free to share it. Let's remember, we never know how many conversations we have left. So let's be grateful for every single one and make everyone count. God bless, and we look forward to our next talk together.